The Magicians Podcast, brought to you in association with the Magic Circle. You're listening to the Magicians Podcast. Informal interviews with the biggest names in magic.
And I'm your host, Richard Young. Hello everybody and welcome to the Magicians Podcast. If you haven't done it already, press the subscribe button. Follow us on Twitter at Magician Podcast, no S. If you don't have Twitter, then find our Facebook page. Just search for the Magicians Podcast. I'm sure you have magician friends. Please do mention this podcast to them the next time you see them, or maybe email them a link. We are trying to get the widest magician audience we possibly can, and I need your help to do that. Today's episode is exciting for two reasons. Reason number one is that my guest is one of my best friends. Rob James will be telling us all about his career very shortly. Reason number two is because today's episode marks the debut of the Giggio jingle. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, I have reinvested their cash in a professional jingle to go with their advert. Now, I know you're very tempted at this point to fast forward to find the advert to hear just how ridiculous it is, but please don't do that because I wouldn't want you to miss a moment of my interview with Rob James. Rob is without question one of the busiest close-up magicians in the country. His diary, quite frankly, disgusts me. He was staying at my house because the next morning he was going off to do a gig in Copenhagen. I offered him free accommodation in exchange for this podcast. Here he is then for your entertainment pleasure, Rob James. So here we are with the man himself, the legend, the myth, Rob James, magic.com. It's not that actually, is it?
No, not quite.
Rob-james.com.
That's right.
How are you doing?
I'm doing fine.
Thanks for doing this.
That's okay. Am I the first person to actually travel to your flat to record this? As opposed to you driving like hundreds of miles in your very poor miles per gallon car to record it at people's houses.
Right, point number one, it's not a flat, right? This is a house, legally, okay? And yes, you are the first person to come to me to do a podcast, but...
Have you not thought that you could do it on Skype and then you could save all the pounds that Martin Rowland pays you and put it towards Café Rouge or something else that you enjoy?
I never thought of that. Can you do it on Skype, can you?
Apparently you can.
You are kidding. So I could have just been doing this on Skype. I've been driving all around the place.
Well, I think you enjoy it. It gets you out of the house, doesn't it?
It does, to be fair. Yeah, got nothing else on at the minute. So here's a little secret. You used to do a podcast.
Yeah, and it was probably about 6 years ago, and I probably would be embarrassed with the sort of stuff that I said in it. So, but you can look it up still. There, people seem to like it. Every now and again, someone will mention they listen to them all.
Oh, really?
And I'll be like, I've completely forgotten what was on them, but people seem to like it. But yeah, we were trailblazers.
So trailblazers. Now they are good actually, and each episode covers a different sort of thing in magic. So if you like the Magicians Podcast, look it up. It's just called Poddycast, right?
That's right. Yeah.
P-O.
I don't know how you'd find it.
So let's talk about you. So you've been a full-time professional now. How long? You've been around a while now.
Yeah, it's been my job since about the beginning of 2002, so that's about 12 and a half years or something.
And here's something people won't know, is that your first job was in Frankie Benny's, a residency, but you had some interesting jobs before, which you remember fondly now, so that, whenever you think you're having a bad day, you just think back. Tell us about some of the jobs you had before you became a magician.
When I was working, part or full-time from the age of about 16 onwards, so I worked in a chair factory, putting chairs together, and also shrink wrapping them. I used to have this massive blowtorch. I had to shrink wrap the chairs with plastic, and then I occasionally would set fire to the chair and realised that I was actually quite bad at that. And then I worked for a supermarket in their head office, and I've done office temping and that kind of thing. So yeah, I never made more than £5 an hour in any other job.
Oh really?
I think I might have made £8 an hour on Tesco on a Sunday. I used to work in a supermarket on the checkout, and I've also worked in a accounts department of Summerfield as well.
Amazing.
Yeah, terrible.
Good. So
I got sacked from Summerfield. Have I told you that before?
Did you really?
I've not told you that.
What did you get sacked for?
Well, I kind of handed in my notice, and I spent the last 6 months of the job. I just used to do all my work that I was given for the week on the Monday morning, finish by 12.
Right.
Then I spent the rest of the week just kind of walking around the office, and then sending emails to one of the girls who was on a desk 2 away from mine. And then this got found out about a week before I was meant to have left anyway, and I got basically called into the office, and I was sacked, and I was frog marched out of the building. It's quite embarrassing.
Actually, we must tell the story later about another time when you were marched out. It was about a year ago. Do you remember that gig you did when you? It never became a gig, but you were marched out of the building.
Yeah, I'm not sure. That's not the sort of thing I want to have on a public record, to be honest. So that's fine. We'll forget that.
Someone might find it. So tell me about when was the decision made to become a full-time professional magician, and how did you go about it? Because
basically, the short story was I dropped out of university after not after 1 year, which is what most people do. I did it after 2 years, which is a little bit too late to drop out, and So I was looking for a job, and no one would give me an interview for any kind of job that I wanted. So I ended up doing office temping, and I was not making very much money, like taking home about 150 quid a week. And then I sort of got offered magic at a Christmas party to do it by someone in my magic club. He said, "Do you want to do it?" And I didn't really want to do it, but he said it was like a few hundred quid for a couple of gigs, and I was like, that's a lot of money. So I went and did it. I really enjoyed it. In fact, I enjoyed it so much that the adrenaline and the excitement levels that I got from doing my first ever gig caused me to crash my car on the way home.
You crashed your car?
Mm-hmm. And I turned the car upside down, flipped it upside down, and I had to be pulled out by a fire engine.
Oh my God.
So that was quite weird. And then oddly enough, my stepdad then drove me to the next gig, the second night, and it was snowing, and he crashed his car on the way back. Anyway, so I kind of got the buzz for doing it then, and then I sort of realised that office temping wasn't really that fun. Magic was, so I kind of pushed myself a little bit, and then ended up doing it as a job.
So, what was your first? I'm right, residency in Frankie Benny's, right?
Well, early on, I kind of I got lucky because I ended up doing the Frankie Benny's manager conference, and I sort of got talking to the guy from the southwest area who did all the regional manager stuff, and I kind of was more proactive than I would be now. I went up to him and I found him and I said, look, I'd love to do a residency in one of your restaurants. And so I started doing the one in Cribs Causeway in Bristol. It's a big shopping centre, on a Saturday afternoon. And then after that, I got given Monday nights and Tuesday nights in different branches. But oddly enough, I was on a contract on them. So I was getting paid via, PAYE. Getting
so you were actually an employee of Frankie Benny's is the way they saw it?
Yeah, as a magician. So I did that for about a year and a half.
Wow.
And I enjoyed it. But then it started to, after a bit towards the end, it was getting I was doing a December and I was going to do, Christmas parties and that kind of thing. And then I was going out to Frankie Benny's and I was thinking, this doesn't seem to quite fit in with the rest of the stuff I'm doing.
Right.
So I kind of and also one of them, they had a new manager and they said, instead of doing every week, can you do every other week? And can you do 2 hours instead of 3 hours for a bit less money? Mm-hmm. So I kind of thought, just forget it really. So I ended up doing just one and then none quite quickly. But I didn't really miss it.
So from there, then you're starting to pick up gigs through other ways. I mean, I think it's fair to say you were one of the first people to really go for the kind of Google thing, and you realised how powerful it could be. Early 2000s, mid 2000s. Yeah,
well, basically, what happened is when I tried to get work doing close-up magic, the way I did it is I went to the library and I photocopied all the bits of entertainment agents in it, and I made a database on my computer, and I sent a flyer or some publicity stuff to all the agencies and event planners that I could find, and a few of them got in touch with me and booked me, but most of them didn't, because they had people on their books they already used, or because I looked too young. I mean, I was about in my early 20s, but I probably looked about 18 or something, so I can understand why they wouldn't want to take a chance on me. So I just kind of thought, that's a bit annoying. So I looked into other ways of doing it and set up a website and started advertising with Google AdWords, which at the time I used to pay about 10 pence a click for.
Right.
Which, if you do AdWords now, is a really, really insanely low amount, because I think it's, you're looking at over £1 a click now. I'm not sure, I never really looked, but I know it's expensive. But yeah, at the time, there was only me and another guy called Glyn Coy who was doing it, and a few others. Paul Gordon, he was quite active on the old pay-per-click. But then very slowly, people, more people started doing it, really. But that was the way that I was able to sort of get my own work without having to try and ingratiate myself with agents who didn't really care whether or not they used me.
So we're gonna jump around a bit in this interview, and I want to fast forward, because if you look at that, Rob is insanely busy as a close-up magician, and he's out all the time doing it. And so I love it. Well, this is what I was going to ask you, actually, because I mean, how do you do it? I know that you're often out 5 nights a week, if not more. Sometimes you're doing 2-3 a day. I mean, Rob in December is insanely busy. How do you feel about it? You've been doing it now professionally for, 12 years?
Mm-hmm. Well, here's an interesting thing. When you say that, my chest doesn't puff out with pride. I'm not thinking, oh, this is good, everyone's going to be thinking I'm the man or anything. I just kind of go, well, it's my job. I built up a reasonable amount of contacts over the years. I should be working, really. So I enjoy it some nights, when it's with nice people and they're into it, it's great. And when it's I like doing like 45 minutes for a group of 10 people. That's good fun.
Yeah, they're always good, yeah.
I love doing that. But how do I cope? I just do it. It's a job, isn't it? Like I said, I've worked in a chair factory, and I worked in an office, and I've had a job where literally I was just tearing up paper for like a week. I worked in a call centre, and I've worked in a bakery putting jam in a donut for all day long. So I kind of go, well,
I have done that.
You've done that as well.
I've done my work experience. Believe it or not, I did my work experience in a supermarket, and one day they put me in the bakery, and they put me on the donut machine. I don't know if it was the same, but my one was a big nozzle.
Yeah.
And you put the donut on the nozzle and you pressed a button and it kind of turned around and made a noise.
That's right.
And they put jam in it, and then you throw it in the sugar.
Yeah.
And it took me about 5 minutes to realise it was much funnier to press the button over and over and over again. So the donut was then full of jam and really heavy.
I did exactly the same thing.
You throw it in the sugar and all the sugar would go poof, where the donut was so heavy, and you just imagine that someone's going to bite into that in a minute and get a big...
Well, I remember it used to be like setting a 4 for a mini donut and 7 for a big donut. Yeah. And I would just go, let's try 12 for a mini donut. Or I'd do 5 mini donuts all on 12 and one with no jam or something. Because I was so bored out of my brain, I just thought, let's just do this, And I was also in charge... So we are jumping around loads, aren't we? But in the same job, I was in charge of reducing all the bread. Yeah. Because it wasn't like a 24-hour shop at that point. The Tesco used to close at 8. So obviously they wanted to get rid of all of their bread by the end of the day. So I did it about 3 times. The first time I did it, I got rid of all the bread by 5 p.m. People were coming in and they were livid. The second time, I thought, right, I'll be a bit more cautious. And I've never seen like more like trolleys full of bread that was unsold at 8 o'clock. So that was it. So I was removed from that. I quite enjoyed it though.
If you've ever done the reductions in a supermarket where when you've got the gun in your hand that reduces stuff, and did you have it where people were like vultures around you waiting for...
I'd say I also had people would come in, and like they'd come in at 6 and they'd pick off all this bread they wanted. Then they'd walk around the supermarket till 7:45. Then they come up to me with a gun and they just point at the bread as if to say, "This, you can't sell this, can you?" And I ask me to reduce it, and I go, "You cheeky so-so." Depends what mood I was in. Sometimes I would say, "I'm sorry, I can't do that." Sometimes I go, "There you go," depending on what I felt.
It's like you said though, yeah. Like I think sometimes we do all forget, and I always say, who was it on another podcast? Graham Jolly, wasn't it? And he said, I'd urge you to go and get a job. To advice for a young magician, and I think it is really important actually. Because
even though it's like I haven't done a job like that for about 13 or 14 years, it's still at the back of my mind. So when you hear people moaning about having to go and do a gig for 350 quid or something, you go, "Are you crazy?" That's a lot of money, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? That's still, even if you think about it, that's still. Or the average wage in this country is like £500 a week, isn't it? Yeah. So you think £350 is almost a week's wage to go out for 2 hours, and people moan about it.
So I want to touch on some things that people won't know about you. And one of the things I know about you is that you love stage magic. And although a lot of people who maybe just found you online or heard your name will probably think of you as a close-up magician, and you had some success a few years ago with winning some awards with close-up magic.
I never won.
You never...
So
I thought you won.
A few seconds and a third.
All right. Well, you enter competitions. You had a good competition act, didn't you?
That's probably one of the things I'm most proud of. Really, that was me sort of trying to do something that I thought was interesting. But
is that still online? Can they go and look at it?
I took it offline actually because I always wondered if people Googled my name and they found that they thought I might do that at their wedding and might put them off. I did think that was a good idea, so I've got I've got my Vimeo account, so I might put it on as a video because I kind of put all my stuff trying to get workers on my YouTube account and all my stuff which I put like as archival of interesting performances I got on my Vimeo account. I don't know. That's.
I see. Yeah. So you a few years ago you went to Edinburgh. And you did a show called Magicana. And I was very lucky to see this show twice, I think. And this is the thing that I think is the most interesting about you, is that the tricks that you chose for that show were really, really interesting tricks. I mean, do you mind me saying what some of the tricks were in the show?
No, I'm probably not going to do the show in that format again, so you're very welcome.
So, I mean, we're talking the orange tree, the Slidini silks. There was a really baffling... What was the card trick in it? The baffling card trick where you...
I don't want to say the name of it because I like the fact that it's kind of a secret, but it's like a card trick where people...
card trick, I don't care if you're, the best card magician, this card trick would fool you, I think. Cause it's
it's a real fool.
It's a killer. And you had the miniature vanishing bird cage. Tell me a little bit about why you chose the tricks that you did and how the Magicana show came about.
Well, the Magicana show came about for me just wanting to do a stage show and get some stage time. And I've seen a lot of magic shows. I went I made my parents take me to see Copperfield at Earl's Court 20 years ago, and I've been to loads of magic convention shows. And if there's a magic show on locally, I'll go and see it. And I'm just interested because I love magic and I like seeing, what's about really. And there's always things that would frustrate me. Like I would always be annoyed if I went to see a magic show and the guy just waffled on for 5 or 10 minutes before he did anything at the beginning, or if they were doing tricks that didn't seem to require any preparation at all. You know what I mean? Like, when you see someone do cards across and they do the palming 3 cards and adding it on. And I think, there's other ways you could do that. Or, that seems like a trick that you would do if you had no time to prepare.
Yeah.
So I thought, if you've got your own stage show and you can do whatever you like, then you should make a bit of an effort. So I opened with the Vanishing Bird Cage, which basically crippled me for the entire show. Because I didn't go off stage or have it removed so it was there the whole time. That was kind of a fun thing to do.
That trick must give you a heart attack to do, right? Because I say this about card on ceiling, and that I don't do card on ceiling. And one of the reasons I can't talk myself into doing it is that you don't know that the trick has worked until the audience do. And the Vanishing Birdcage is the same. I mean, it can go wrong, and I've seen other magicians have it go wrong for them where it doesn't quite disappear as beautifully as it should.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that in your head? And it was your opening trick as well.
Well, that was the idea. So because I'd seen all these guys come on and just, waffle on for ages, I thought, I want to come on. I just want to do something that is fucking brilliant in the first minute. And then I thought the Vanishing Birdcage is an awesome trick. So what's the question?
Yeah, so how do you deal with that in your head?
How do you deal with it? Right, yeah. So I basically, I remember when I'd never looked at anything to do with pools or anything like that. So when I got the cage, I sort of rigged myself up with it, and I tried it. I went, oh my god, that looks terrible.
Right.
I think I took it with me to a gig actually I was doing with Dave Wilmot, and I was like, the first time I did it was we pulled over to a service station. I put on to try this, and he looked at me like I was like I'd just done the worst trick ever, which I had. And so. I just did it over and over and over again, and I got my iPhone, I balanced it on the side on top of my shelf at home. I just recorded it from loads of angles, and I sort of bored some of my friends of it, said, how's this look? I just did it loads and loads and loads, and I took it over to the Magic Castle with me not that long ago, 2012, which was a month before I was going to do the Edinburgh show. And I didn't have the nerve to do it on the first day or the second day, but by the third day I was getting a little confident. I went into the castle in the afternoon, and I just I did it a few times. I think I did it for Andy Gladwin, who was with me, and he was with John Gastafaro, and they both said, oh, that looks great, And I thought, oh, that's nice, because I was, obviously I'd never done it. So I got the confidence up to do it that night in the first show, and it went really well. So I could hear the audience gasping. I could see them.
Yeah.
I knew it was a great trick. So, but still, even if I'm doing it now, I I'm not happy until the second it's gone.
It is terrifying. I don't know how you do
terrible.
it.
Well, also, like, you know, I'm guessing everyone knows how it works, but you probably don't, unless you've actually got one out and tried it, you probably don't know exactly how it works. And it's not easy, you know. And it's also I thought, the cage must like collapse on its own because it wants to collapse. And because I've got a semi-rigid cage, it doesn't, you know, it doesn't collapse. So you got to push it. So you do everything yourself, you know, and you've got to like do a couple of things at once to make it look good. So it's not easy to do. So when people, and it was an interesting choice of trick because the method is out there. You know, you type in vanishing bird cage into Google and you see like images of the cage in it. But I thought because it just looks so amazing, I'm happy to have it as an effect, even though magicians and people will know how it works, kind of. So I knew that method was out there. So I also wanted to have some tricks in the show that were really going to be, you know, flawless. Like some of the card tricks. Like there's a card trick in there I did 2 card tricks only because I thought that was enough. And one of them, the method was basically chance.
Really? Even I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was it's like, just probability, and also there was several scenarios of how it could go. One, it could go fine. One, it could go not so fine, and one, it could not really work at all. So you know, so that was a fun method. But because the method was chance, kind of, it was. It made it a faller, you know. So when it hit, it hits most of the time, people were going, "Oh, that's, you know, that can't possibly work," you know. So
that fooled me. Yeah, no, I had no idea.
So, but I wanted to have loads of stuff. I had 6 tricks in there, which were going to be, you know, stuff that would really screw with people. And because I've seen so much magic, and because I've always been quite vocal with my friends, especially like about how I hate hack material and all this sort of stuff, and there was a point where, like, you know, maybe I was more outspoken than I am now, but I was kind of thought, well, you know, this is my one time to actually put everything that I believe in into practice, really.
Yeah.
So I did. So so whether I think the show is okay. It always.
It wasn't okay. It was brilliant, and also, I'm saying it's brilliant, but I think universally magicians received it very well because
apart from at the International Magic Festival, where I think it absolutely bombed because I don't know what that was one of the worst gigs I've ever done in my life.
I don't think I was there that night. I don't think it was as bad as you think.
I just couldn't. No one was looking me in the eye afterwards.
It wasn't.
But I tell you, that was like an audience of like 25 people that was scattered around like a 60-seat room after a long day, and I don't know. Yeah, no. Magicians have an amazing habit of making you feel like you're a total failure. Yeah. Like I remember, I did a magic convention about 2004. Right, I did a Bristol Day of Magic, and it was the first one I'd done. And I thought after doing, I don't know, probably 300-400 gigs at that point, I thought, you know what, I've seen everything. Nothing can faze me now. Nothing can come in my path that's going to make me feel like it's not going to plan. I just went out and all these people looking at me and like just not laughing in the right places, and I just went, oh right, yeah, I forgot. It's really weird. And that was my first memory of that. My second memory was like 8 years later at the international thing, and I was like, oh my god.
So when you take Magicana to Edinburgh, first of all, you're a big fan of the Edinburgh Festival, aren't you? You go up there every year. I've been going up as a punter every year for 10 years. I would not miss it. It's brilliant. So had you been wanting to go up for a while with a show? Well,
it's one of those things. Like when you go there, I mean, you've only been up once as a punter, and you were going with a view to putting on your own show, weren't you? Yeah. So, but I was going up because I just heard about it, and I thought that sounds pretty awesome. So I went up, and I really had a good time. And I see loads of stuff: comedy, theatre, magic. You know. After a few years of going up, I would love to put on a show here, but I don't think I'm ready to do it. So what I ended up doing was I got myself booked to do the Edinburgh Magic Festival, which Kevin McMahon puts on, which is an event which doesn't get anywhere near enough as much press as it should in the magic world, because he puts a lot of work into that. Anyway, he put me in 2011, right, and I did a version of the show. So it didn't have the cage, it didn't have a few other things. So I did like an embryonic version of it. I did it for a week and I had a really good time. And so I thought, that's it, next year I'm going to do the whole Fringe. So I went up and did the whole run, and yeah, it's a really interesting experience.
Did you enjoy it? I mean, the thing is with Edinburgh is that it can, I mean, guys, it knocks the wind out of you sometimes. And I've had bad experiences up there, I've had great experiences up there. How was your experience up there? Did you enjoy it? You haven't done it since, so was there a reason why you haven't done it since?
Well, I haven't done it since because I don't feel like I've got another show in me. I'd have to really sit down and do it. And also the year leading up to when I did it, you'll know this yourself, like there's so much stuff you got to do. For me, it started in January.
Yeah.
And like, can you fill this format? Can you do this? Can you do this? Can you get your program information ready? Can you do this? Can you do this? Preview dates. People will say, can you come and do 10 minutes? Artwork's gonna be ready. Flyers, and I'm like, oh my god! And like for me, it just played on my mind so much. And like, so that was basically January through to August was just constant anxiety for me. And like, I am a generally fairly anxious person anyway. Really, I'm not always a relaxed, happy, fun guy or whatever. But so. But it was a fun thing to do, and I had a good time, and I will do it again. But I just want to. So I could have gone down the next year. I could have just done the same show, or done maybe the same kind of format show with a few different with different tricks. But I don't know how that would have progressed it any further. Do you know what I mean? I don't know how. I want to try and always do something new and move on a little bit.
Well, in the show there was a pickpocketing scene, and that's actually, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, that was kind of something where you were testing the water with pickpocketing. And since then, you've done loads of stuff with pickpocketing. What was your thought process with going into the sort of world of pickpocketing? And did it just start with learning a watch steal and go from there? Or?
Yeah, well, I've been doing a watch steal for over 10 years. That was something I always thought was a cool thing to do. So I just started learning that. I got to the point where I could do it, under fire. And then I started taking a few other things. Like pocket contents and that kind of thing. And then I got my wife to sit very calmly a few years ago, and I constantly took a tie off her and with a different, like a magic trick to try and take that. So I got to the point where I could do that, and I thought, right, a watch, a tie, and other things, that's basically what pickpocket does, maybe a belt or braces or something like that. So I just started doing it at gigs for fun because I thought it was a bit of a challenge, and then I put it into my show, and it's actually interesting. Some of the most interesting sort of opportunities that have come to me in the last couple of years have come from doing pickpocketing. I've consulted on a movie called what's it called, Kingsman Secret Service, which is coming out in January or something. It's going to be a massive movie because it was made by the guy who made Kick-Ass and X-Men. And I've done some gigs that are really, really interesting I would never have done. That's purely just because of doing something a little bit different, really, which made me think I should have done that a bit earlier. Do
you enjoy it again with pickpocketing? It's real high pressure though, right? Someone books you as a pickpocket.
Yeah, because it's luckily I've been okay because I've always tried to control the circumstances. Make sure it's like an event with 200 people and it's going to be people in suits or whatever. But I don't know how someone could do a gig as a pickpocket for 20 people where they're kind of dressed smart casually. People say they do. I don't. Yeah. You got to do some magic. So sometimes an agent will say to me, "Look, can you do 3 hours pickpocketing with 50 people?" I go, "No, I'll do magic and pickpocketing." And they go, "Okay, we don't want you." I go, "Okay, fine. I don't want to do either," because I find that you do it a few times and people they see all the commotion and then that's it really. They won't let you anywhere near them. But I've had chats with pickpockets that claim that it's fine, but I don't know. I don't know how much of it is bravado or how much of it is they've worked it out. Who knows?
Can you believe it? We're nearly at half time, so we're going to need to pay some bills. And the way we do that, of course, is
with Giggio.
We take it.
Down to you.
You can't. I'm going to have to put a beep over that. You cannot tell people how much they're paying. Unbelievable. That means I've now got to find a beep sound effect to put over your voice.
Giggio, free for 30 days. Be a pro, get Giggio.
I cannot tell you how happy I was when that arrived in my inbox. I had to wait nearly 10 days for that. It was worth the wait. In fact, I'm even going to play it again. Giggio, if you don't know already, where have you been? I've been talking about it for weeks. It's a web-based software designed for professional entertainers like yourself. It takes all of the stress out of your admin. Through the software, you can manage your inquiries, you can generate your PDF contracts, you can generate invoices, and you can even track your payments. That's right, you'll never be at a gig again and wonder, has this client already paid, or am I meant to be getting an envelope full of cash tonight? It's quick to set up and really easy to use. You can read what other entertainers are saying about it and, as you just heard in the jingle, take a free 30-day trial at giggio.co.uk. That's Giggio, spelt Giggio.co.uk.
Giggio, free for 30 days. Be a pro, get Giggio.
The Magicians Podcast, brought to you in association with the Magic Circle, the world's premier magical society. Are you ready to join the world's most exclusive magic club? Visit themagiccircle.co.uk to find out more.
So the great thing about having a commercial break on the Magicians Podcast is that, and also the great thing about being in an illusion act, is that during the commercial break, Young and Strange's dancer, Nicole, just made Rob James a cup of tea.
Yeah, it's very kind of her. Very nice.
She just...
friendly girl.
Friendly, yeah. Made a cup of tea. Yeah. Giggio, that was good of them, isn't it, to sponsor the Magicians Podcast every week?
Yeah, he just told me how many subscribers he's got. He's doing already.
You're getting me in a lot of trouble there. Yeah, no, he's doing... And I'll tell you why he's got a lot of subscribers, because he's brilliant. You should give it a go. A free 30-day trial and everything. No reason not to. So earlier on, you mentioned about your Edinburgh show and about how you started it with a real killer trick. And during the commercial break, you've just told me that, you know, that's one of the things that does your head in magic, is when people just sort of drag things out, shall we say. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I'm always very conscious of how long a routine is. And I remember Ian Rowland, he liked my show. He said he was very nice about it in the Magic Circular, and he spoke to me about it. And he said that you can tell that I've come from a close-up background, because, as you know, when you perform close-up, you haven't got very long to get people's attention and do something. Otherwise, they start to just lose all interest, don't they? I mean, sometimes they lose interest regardless, don't they?
Yeah,
So you just get on with it. So in my show, I just got on with it, and that's because that comes from just observation of other magic shows over the years, when, you know, someone will take 10 or 20 minutes to do a routine that could be 5. And even the magicians that have got long routines, they tend to be full of gags and bits and stuff like that. So like someone like John Archer does long routines, but every line's a line, everything has a meaning. But some magicians will just do something, and it will just be so full of fluff, and it just drive me crazy, because I go, you know, you might only have the audience watching you for 10 minutes or half an hour or something, so you've got to make every second count, really.
What are some of the best magic shows? You've seen so many magic shows. I know you love theatre. You're always going and seeing things that are not magic as well. And I know when you go up to Edinburgh, you go and see 20 odd shows in 4 or 5 days. What are some things that you've seen that you just love?
Magic-wise?
Let's start with magic, shall we?
Yeah. Best magic shows I've seen, I saw a show at the Fringe called The Shadow Orchestra by Xavier Mortimer, who was at the International Convention last year, or this year, whenever you put this out. And he did a 60-minute show of silent magic that was just unbelievable. It's just really, really good. At the Edinburgh Fringe, I also saw Barry and Stewart's first show. That was really interesting.
Oh, amazing, yeah.
Their first show was full of their original ideas, and very creative and funny and macabre, and I love that. I really liked Copperfield's show when I saw it. I've only seen him 3 times. One was at Earl's Court in 1994. One was last year when I saw his current Vegas show, which I loved. And what else have I seen? I like Penn and Teller's show as well.
Yeah.
Although I think for some reason I've got a bit of a leaning towards things that are more spectacular, and, you know.
You like the Bigaloosies, don't you?
I do.
You love Bigaloosies.
That's interesting. When I meet people that don't know me very well, they always go, "Oh yeah, you're the close-up guy, aren't you? You must love close-up magic." I don't. I hate close-up magic. It's like,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't hate it. You know what I mean? It's like, I think it's fine, but if I go to like a magic convention and I got a choice between watching some guy just sitting there doing card tricks for 10 minutes, or someone doing an illusion act for 10 minutes with pyro and all that, of course that's a much better thing to watch, isn't it? I can't understand anyone that would think otherwise, really.
And I think that will surprise people, actually. And that's what I wanted to touch on a little bit with you in this podcast.
One of the happiest evenings I ever did was I went over to the House of Illusion, which Rodney Piper owns, and I did the milk churn escape on the stage.
Did you really?
It's brilliant. He's got this old milk churn that used to be in the Barnum show. Sorry, it was made for Barnum, but Michael Crawford didn't want to do it at the last minute because he got claustrophobic or something. That might be the story. I might have it slightly wrong. But anyway, the illusion was the milk churn was filled with water. You go in, you escape. Oh, sorry, I'm trying to get ahead of myself here. But so the people investigate the milk churn. They see it's fine. It's filled with water. The magician gets in. The water's then topped up. The screen goes around it. You then escape. But then as a kicker, there's a girl inside the milk churn. So who could never have been in there. So I did that one night. It was great. Hey. Although people laughed when I came out because I was wearing my swimming costume. And I'm not one of those buff guys, so they think it was a bit more of a comic effect. So I think Rodney was a bit sort of taken aback by, because before he had someone who's quite muscly doing it, and it was a bit of a ooh moment.
I've heard that although you're not a muscly guy, you're in other departments, you're quite. It's just I read it on a magic forum, so
unbelievable.
So let me. So there's some of your highlights with the. That's some of your highlights with magic shows, and that's what I want to do on this podcast. I want to dispel some rumours about you that you are. Some people say you are the SEO guy, and that's,
you know what? I understand why you say that, but I have not done a single bit of work on my website since 2007. And I do get some work from SEO, but as we've had conversations before, my motto for getting work is put as many different seeds down in as many different places as you can, and you will reap the rewards. So I do all sorts of things, and what's that cliche about, rather than knowing one way to get 100 jobs, know 100 ways to get one job, and that will serve you better over a long period of time. If I get SEO inquiries these days, it tends to be for Newcastle on Tyne or Manchester or something like that, or so it's useful to a point, but that's by no means anymore the core of my business, really. And
the core of your business, actually, like you said, is you go down lots of different roads. And you talked in the first half about that mail shot you did.
Yep. And
you're still, occasionally, from time to time, you're getting a gig from that.
There are 2 or 3 agencies who I mail shotted back in 2001, 2002 that will still call me and book me for stuff now. So, yeah. And
you network other magicians. Is that quite an important part as well?
I wouldn't say network as in deliberately try and do it, but, if you have a genuine common bond with people and you get on with them, common bond, that's my robotic way of saying friendship.
Yeah.
If magicians are your friends and you pass some work and it will come back to you, that's always going to be far more valuable to you than if you are just an island and you don't talk to anyone else and you're very fearful of other people taking your work and that kind of thing. That's a little bit of a naive way of looking at it.
So because you're 10, 12 years into being a close-up magician, do you see it as that's what you're going to be doing until you retire? Or is there other things in magic that interest you that you want to look to do? Or
well, I've tried a few other things, like the stage show was my attempt at doing that, but I always find that I just don't get paid that much money when I do it because I'm doing it at sort of public nights, like I'm doing, Magic Night or Conjuring at the Court.
Hey,
or
that got closed down.
Madame Jojo, it did, didn't it?
Closed down. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
We've done there.
Well, they've moved to a different location, haven't they?
Have they?
Well, when they had it closed for one night, I think they moved over the road. So hopefully that will still go.
If you've never been to Magic Night, look that up. It's in Soho, and it's once a month.
No, it's fortnightly. But the interesting thing about it is it doesn't attract magicians at all.
Not at all.
It's very much for the public. So, it's an interesting show to look at.
It's Katia who organises that.
She's lovely, isn't she?
Lovely lady. And she books all different types of magicians. And, fortnight, hopefully they're all right and they're going to open again. And go down and support it. Same as Conjuring at the Court, you've done that as well.
Yeah, I do that about once a year. But I find that those shows are really good fun to do, but they just don't pay as much as the close-up gigs, really, and I couldn't sustain a living doing them, so I'd have to move up quite a bit in terms of, to a different level, really, to get the money that I would make doing close-up, I suppose. But
no complaints about what Conjuring at the Core or
Oh no, not complaining. They probably pay more than like a comedy club would pay a comedian.
Absolutely.
So I'm not complaining. I'm just saying if I wanted to make my living doing it, it would be quite tricky at that level.
Yeah,
because I'd probably make £200 a month or something.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So that's So I've got, but that's my avenue of trying to stimulate myself as a performer. And I'll tweak things. Like we went back to the Magic Castle at the end of 2004. I went over with some friends, and I came up with a new 20-minute routine for that. But I haven't done it much since, really. But
what is that like, working at the Magic Castle? I've never been out there. What's it like?
I love it. The first time I went over was about 10 years ago, which is mental because I'd only been a magician as a job for a few years, and the reason I got in is because I met this magician called Gaston Quito, who's from Argentina, who lives in Dubai. He's a really charismatic, good-looking guy, and he was booked through the close-up room, and he went, you come over and do it with me. I went, are you sure? He said, I'll put a good word in for you, man. So he did, and I went over into the close-up room, and I probably, in hindsight, was a bit premature, really, in my career to do it, but I did it a couple of times. And then I went back just a few years ago and did the parlour, which was I think I was ready for, because I was getting ready for Edinburgh, and I stepped up a little bit to try and meet it. But as a place to work, it's amazing because it's a destination venue. People are dressed up. There are all sorts of fun things going on. There are pictures on the wall where the eyes move. There are little gags all over the place. Like one of the urinals has got a timer on it, so when you go up to it, about 10 seconds after you stand up to it, which is a time you would have unzipped, I guess, it starts playing It's a Small, Small World. And
Are you serious?
Yeah, you don't know that.
I did not know that.
There's all sorts of stuff like that. They even have a committee at the Magic Castle who are in charge of all those gags, like coming out with new ones and putting different ideas into practice. And people, they love it. And it's also really, really busy as well. Like, it's over the last decade, I've been over a few times. It's got really, really busy, and people have a great time there. So.
It's lovely, isn't it? People they still dress up to go in there, I've heard. And
yeah, and it's not like a dress code. It's not like a dress code that's being enforced because it's a stuffy establishment. It's being enforced because it makes it into more of an occasion.
Yeah,
and I've said before, like and privately to you, like people say the Magic Circle should be have a dress code. You go, well, okay, but it's not really. The public aren't going in, are they? It's just the members on their own.
Yeah,
so they should be kind of hanging out and relaxing a little bit. So there's an argument there: should you have it or should you not have it? Whereas the Magic Castle, they've got one of those walls out, like a roller banner type thing outside, like when you might see outside a film premiere with the castle logo on it, and you see all the people coming out of the cars and all these beautiful women dressed up in cocktail dresses, and guys who are obviously involved in media and film production who just look like the business. They've just so smartly and look amazing. So it becomes part of the fabric of the venue that people like that. So it makes it something special, really. But the whole place is amazing. If you ever go over to Los Angeles, you've got to go as a magician. You can't miss it.
So when you're over here working close-up magicians, are there working close-up gigs? Are there sort of a circle of magicians that you work with quite a lot, or people you particularly trust with gigs that you can't do, or?
Yeah, there's probably about maybe 6, 7, 8 people that I trust.
Yeah.
Implicitly, and others that I will book out to do other
Matt
stuff.
Windsor, he's like an amazing secret in Matt. He's a brilliant magician. I know you work. I've
known Matt for ages. Yeah, and he's really, really good. Magicians in the Northwest will know who he is, because for many years he was organising magicians to do hospitality at Manchester United, and he was putting in like 16 or 17 magicians every home game. So everyone out there knows him, but outside of that, I don't think people do, really, because he keeps himself to himself, and he's got his family, and he's fine with that. But I've seen him working, and he's brilliant, really.
Talking about close-up gigs, what's your opinion with regards to fees? Do you pitch yourself as a cheaper magician, a more expensive magician, or are you mid-range?
I think I'd probably pitch myself towards the lower end of the higher side.
So would that be the middle? Is that what you mean?
No, not middle. Because I feel maybe a little bit higher than the median fee. I try and get what I can, really.
Yeah.
But I think I've got a limit of what I wouldn't do, But
have you got a little bit more where you're a bit further down the road now, where you say no to certain jobs, certain things you did in the past perhaps you wouldn't do anymore?
Yeah, I'm a little bit more selective. I won't do school proms. I won't do bar mitzvahs or any kind of event where everyone is under 16. I'll try and drive a bit less than I was doing before. But, those are just my general guidelines. But I will sometimes get annoyed with myself because I'll take a gig that I know is going to be not that good. Like, a 30th birthday when they got a DJ playing from 7 o'clock, that kind of thing. I know that's going to be terrible, but I just
upstairs in a bar.
Yeah, with the worst buffet you could ever imagine. And, I just kind of go, oh, God. But I just think, well, it's 2 weeks' time and I haven't got a gig in, so I may as well take it because, swallow my pride a little bit. And also, you can't pre-guess all gigs, can you? Sometimes something that looks great on paper is not that fun, and something that you think is going to be a little bit naff can turn out to be a really good gig that leaves you feeling great about yourself.
Certain magicians who go a bit mental because of the fact that prices are not what they used to be. And I mean, you've been in the game 12 years. You've seen prices be driven down somewhat, I guess, by the fact there's more magicians.
Well, I don't know. Well, when I started out, my fee was largely dictated by what I was offered. And I remember a conversation I had with an agent called Gordon Poole, who's still around, but I think he mainly books speakers now. But he got my flyer in the post when I did a mail out, and he phoned me up when I was in the office of a job I was doing temp-wise, and he said, "Hi Rob, Gordon Poole here, just got your flyer. Can I ask you what the minimum is you go out for?" And I went, minimum? 150 quid? He went, okay. So I've got a gig for you on 4th of June if you want it. I went, okay. He goes, details to follow, hangs up. Okay. And then he booked me about once a week for about a year, always for 150 quid.
Oh, really?
But that's, I think that's fair enough because I was in my early 20s and it was a while ago. So my fees have kind of crept up, but to sort of, reasonable level, I suppose. But I always hear people that talk about the heyday of gigs being, mega money or whatever. But I've also heard other people sort of contrast that or whatever. I think it's all about what your perception is, isn't it? I mean, the one thing I've noticed is that a few years ago I was happy to drive miles and miles and miles and do the worst gig in the worst place for the fee, just on the basis that I was making something, and it was better than sitting at home. And I used to think it was a bit crazy to not do that if the option was there. Whereas now, the idea sometimes of doing a 200-mile round trip to clear, the same amount of money, I just kind of go, I just don't want to do it really. Sometimes a time off is worth more to you, so I understand that. But everyone has their own idea, don't they? I mean, sometimes I'll look on a Facebook group, Magic Facebook group or something like that, which have replaced forums, haven't they now? And people will say, I can't believe these undercutters. And I think that's really odd because let's say you think that someone undercutting you is charging £100 and you charge 200, and I kind of look at that and go, well, that's yours charging 200 and you're moaning about undercutters, and I would charge more than that. But then there are people that would look at my fee and go, well, he's not charging much. So there's always there's always someone else that would look at you going, that's not very much money. I remember a brilliant quote I read years ago. I forget who said it, but they said that there's a big difference, between the amateurs and the professionals, but there's an even bigger difference between the professionals and the guys that have really made it. So when we were all talking about the difference between 350 or 650 and 750 or whatever, there's a whole spectrum of people that are just, in a league of their own.
Yeah.
We can never understand. We'll never know what it's like to be Dynamo or Darren Brown or even like Troy or something like that. You know what I mean? We can't. There's something we're probably not going to get to really. So I kind of look at it that way really, and just think, well, there's a market for everyone, isn't there?
Noel Britton touched on that and said that every business in the world, someone became a millionaire from it. And that's the thing. There's magicians out there tonight for 150 quid, but likewise Copperfield is in the MGM in Vegas and he's clearing Lord knows how much. Do you want to play the word association game? This is a new game on the Magicians Podcast. Because
of course I want to play it. It sounds like a whole lot of fun.
All you have to do is I say some things related to magic, and then you just tell me what comes to your mind. And just to let you know, the more controversial the better, because that seems to be what people like on the Magician's Podcast. Think the Graham Jolly Podcast. That's where we're going with this. Are you all right with that?
Yeah. Well, I know several of my friends will be listening to this, waiting for me to just put my foot in my mouth so they can just relish in my awkwardness. But I'm afraid that's not really an avenue I want to go down.
So let's start with an easy one, the Magic Circle.
I like the Magic Circle, but I didn't join until a few years ago because I wanted to be a bit more... I wanted to be part of it, really. I felt like I was missing out by not being a member. So since I've been a member, I've been quite pleased with it. I think that it's got a lot to learn from the Magic Castle, for example, where it's like, a mysterious building with public shows and that sort of thing, as opposed to like quite a bright room with some old people sat around,
Yeah.
So, but I like it, and I'm glad to be a member, and I wish I could go more, but sometimes, when I've had a weekend of gigs, I sometimes don't really want to get in the car and go to London. I just, because I live in Bristol, so...
Why do you live in Bristol?
Why do I live? Why do you live in a flat in the middle of nowhere?
I don't live in a flat. This is a house. This is a house, okay? It's not...
The nearest shop is 10-minute drive away.
This is a freehold property. Unbelievable. I know, yeah, okay. Dynamo.
Nice guy. Ambitious. I don't know. Yeah, I've known him for a long time. I've known him since he was selling his... He's never been my friend, really, but I've always known him, and he knows who I am, I remember when he was going around Blackpool doing civil cuts and being annoying, and everyone going, why is that kid doing that? We used to think it was kind of funny, and then...
Isn't there a story?
Now he's world famous. It's literally, it's within my very recent memory. It's an amazing thing to have watched. I'm glad he's achieved everything he has, really.
Someone told me once, I don't know who told me this, but there's a story of when before he was famous and he used to go around magic conventions. There was a story of that. It was also before Darren was famous, and he was at the convention, and he said, "Who is that kid? He's really annoying."
Yeah,
so
yeah. I believe that to be true.
Yeah,
he probably says the same thing now, I imagine.
That's true. What do you think about TV magic?
I've got to be honest. I used to absolutely love it. I used to record stuff, watch it back, play it back. These days, I'll watch like half an episode or 10 minutes or something. I'll just go, this is not for me, and I won't watch it because it just annoys me. I'm a little bit like Russ Stevens, but without the passion to actually voice my concerns.
Yeah.
I just kind of more like just to turn it off and feel a bit deflated for a bit and then forget about it. But it's not. I don't think it's for us, is it?
That's very interesting. So,
but the public love it, don't they? So what we can learn is, why don't we try and do some better tricks like the public seem to like,
Yeah.
Because if someone mentions it to you, they always mention Dynamo walking on the Thames or the phone in the bottle or stuff like that. It's just amazing tricks, right? So maybe we should listen and go, oh, right, maybe making a piece of rope a bit longer than it was before is not quite as good as that. Maybe we should think about changing it a little bit. And that's the one lesson I've learned from it, but I don't really watch it because I don't like it.
David Copperfield.
Amazing. Love him.
Yeah?
Yeah. Brilliant. I begged, like I said before, I begged my parents to take me to go and see him 20 years ago, and he did the fan and appear behind me, and I thought they must have installed a tunnel in Earl's Court, to get from the stage to the back. And I used to have a videotape of flying, and I just watched that over and over and over again, going, that is just brilliant. Flying. I also liked the Passion of Prison Illusion.
That's the Metamorphosis.
Yeah, just because it was a hot girl, wasn't it?
Yeah. Were you international?
And it's also, it takes about 3 minutes and it's just one moment of magic, but it's not boring at all, is it? It's just constant. It builds and builds, and it's just, yeah, so I used to.
You were international the other week? Did you see the hula hoop girl?
I did.
It's great, wasn't she?
Amazing.
There you go.
By the time this goes out, everyone else will have that as a distant memory, with the exception of you, who will probably continue to text me pictures of her every week.
I found her Instagram. Amazing.
You're a dangerous man.
Dave Wilmot.
Interesting guy, isn't he? Sometimes he goes missing for like weeks at a time and no one knows. Here's an interesting story about David Wilmot. Now, your listeners probably, well, really, they shouldn't know who he is. If you do know who he is, then you're probably someone that we know. so you know. But for those who don't know who David Wilmot is...
Dave Wilmot, by the way, is like the Carl Pilkington to the Magicians podcast that Carl Pilkington was to Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant.
All you need to know about David Wilmot is last December, it was his birthday, and Andy Gladwin put on a birthday party for him. Because it was his 40th birthday, okay, a special birthday. His wife, no, it was not his wife, his girlfriend. No, God, she'd hate it if I said his wife. His girlfriend was on holiday with some friends. Dave was obviously home alone. Andy put on a party at his house very kindly. I went up to Birmingham. I drove from Bristol to Birmingham, which is 100 miles, to pick up our friend Rodney from Spain as a surprise to take to Dave's party. And Rodney bought himself a Father Christmas costume. He's going to knock on the window and he's going to surprise Dave and come in, you know, and it's going to be amazing. And Dave didn't bother to turn up. He just couldn't be bothered. And then he didn't apologise. He didn't give any reason why he didn't turn up. He just went, just didn't go.
He didn't turn up to his own birthday party.
Noel Coulter drove from Surrey, drove 2.5 hours to be there, and Dave didn't go. And there was no explanation given. He just didn't go. That's all you need to know about David Wilmot.
He didn't turn up to his own birthday party.
I tell you what, he's also worth. If you have him on Facebook, just keep an eye on the groups he joins. Like he joins groups like Cars and Vans for under £1,000 in Bristol. Or fishing equipment like that. I don't know what's going on with that guy.
So here's another Dave Wilmot story. In 2007,
This is a brilliant story. This is a great story.
I was trying to start my career as a close-up magician, and I found a way to put dodgy adverts on Google. What was it called? Google Maps.
Google Local. Yeah.
Google Local, and I put an advert in Bristol to an address which I didn't know. And Dave Wilmot rang me and he said, "Why have you started advertising in Bristol? You don't live in Bristol." And I sort of just went, "What the hell? Shut up." And I put the phone down. 6 months goes by and I get a letter from the Royal Mail saying that there is a letter waiting for me at the post office and the correct postage hasn't been paid on it. So you need to pick it up. Now, where this story really gives its all is that on that particular day, my little car had gone in for a service. So I walked in the rain to the post office, which is about a 20-minute walk, to pick up this package, not knowing what it was. And when I opened it, there was nothing in it other than a pen lid. And I'd paid £1.30 to pick it up. And I knew immediately it was David Wilmot, based on the argument I'd had with him 6 months earlier. And the reason I knew that is because I didn't have any other enemies in the world, and I knew I'd annoyed him that day when I hung up on him. So I posted it back to him, recorded delivery. And about 5 years later, when we did become friends, he told me in his Bristol accent, "Yeah, fair play when you did that. I don't know how you knew it was me, but you knew it was me. Fair play for sending it back." So that's a Dave Wilmot story. We should get Dave on. Do you reckon he'd come on the Magicians podcast?
How are you going to fill an hour?
Yeah, that's true. But maybe we should just build him up like the Carl. I think I like that. The Carl Pilkington of the Magicians podcast. Dave Wilmot from Bristol. Rob, we're running. I can't believe it. This is nearly an hour, so we're gonna have to wrap it up there. Thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it. And also, I'm gonna tell everybody now. You don't know this, but Rob has actually been my proof listener as well. So every episode I've made of the Magicians podcast, I have sent it to Rob to check. And so he's listened to every single episode, and I really, really appreciate you doing that. I know you've invested, I don't know what we're up to now, 12 hours of your life listening to my little project here. So thank you for doing that. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Well, thank you for doing it.
Oh, I really appreciate that. So there we go. It's Rob James. Massive thanks to Rob James. He is without question one of my favourite people in magic. Thanks for doing the podcast, Rob. I really appreciate it. And as I mentioned at the end, Thank you also for being my proof listener here and double checking that all of my editing isn't a disaster every week. You can have a look at his website, which is rob-james.com, and there's lots of really good video content on there. Rob's had some brilliant videos produced this year, which I think you'll enjoy. So check that out if you have a spare minute. As I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, the next morning Rob was heading off to Copenhagen to do a gig, and shortly after we finished recording the podcast, which was nearly midnight, he suddenly realised he didn't have his passport. So off he went back to Bristol, and a 2.5 hour round trip back to my house. I think he finally got into bed in my spare room at about 2:45 in the morning and had to leave at 7 a.m. the next morning. So if you are a high flyer like Rob doing gigs abroad, which I most certainly am not, make sure you always have your passport on you. Thanks very much for tuning in this week. We've got some really great episodes coming up over the next few weeks. I'm really excited about some of the people who have agreed to appear on this podcast. So stay tuned. And as I mentioned before, subscribe to us, follow us on Twitter at Magician Podcast, no S, or of course, like our Facebook page, which is The Magicians Podcast. Thanks again. See you next week.